Hello, welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, we love seeing you live every week on Thursday nights on Facebook or on YouTube. So if you're there watching us live, go say hi in the chat. We will be watching, so say hi now. And if you're watching it later, even better, you can watch us anytime through YouTube or your favorite podcast app. So let's see. As for introductions, you know who I am. My name is John Ruark. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. And next up for his introduction is the one, the only, Joe Martinez. Hello and good evening.
Woo. Hello and good evening, Joe Martinez. I missed the show last week. I think that was the first show I missed, so I'm like totally in detox mode with TMR. Joe Martinez, there was my name. Pisces Aries cusp. So a little bit weird. And let's see, this week I am still the master of Manassas Lodge, number 182, Manassas, Virginia, member of many other things, and super jazzed to be here tonight.
We need to get to Jamie Paul Lamb on and talk about our ascendants and
it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. We should do that.
And just have him just like totally nerd out on us. That would be fun.
And we just sit there quiet like this.
Just soak it in. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. Next up for his introduction, Jason Richards. Hello and good evening, Jason.
Hello and good evening. Jason Richards here, past master of Acacia Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, member of the Colonial Lodge number 1821 in Washington, D.C., and member of Lafayette number 79 in Zanesville, Ohio.
Excellent. Glad to have you. And Robert will be here shortly. And so without further ado, I want to introduce our special guest host for tonight, which is Brother Chad Kopinski. How are you? Why don't you give your own Masonic introduction?
Sure. So my name is Chad Kopinski. I'm past master of Paramuthi number 25 in Athens, Ohio. Past district deputy, past district education officer of the Masonic district, immediate past chair of the Grand Lodge Education Committee in Ohio, and currently the president of the Midwest Conference on Masonic Education, although I represent none of those people tonight. So just think of me as somebody who really loves furry woodland creatures and is kind to them whenever I see them, and somebody who really likes applause. And we'll just kind of go from there.
Love it. Awesome. We're going to leave that square dark over there until Robert decides to join us. So over that wise.
It's like draping the charter.
Yes. We're draping the charter for Robert. Before we get into tonight's topic, we want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. The patrons are what makes the show. You guys are awesome, and we love having you join us in our little secret chat room, Facebook group, and nerd out about other sorts of Masonic and not Masonic related content. I mean, it's been pretty cool because not only do we have a little community in there that talks about Masonry stuff and advice there. Sometimes we'll just, hey brothers, does anybody know, someone who's a notary or anything like weird like that? It's also good to have a little small community of people that can chat with and get some quick answers to. So if you like,
it's a lot of
TMR,
fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. So if you like TMR,
I'm in there almost every day.
Yep.
First place I go to when I'm looking for a notary or a plumber
is the Knights and Squires group.
Is that particular site?
Yeah, that's where I go. That's
right.
where I go.
And if you want to find a Masonic plumber, head on over to patreon.com/the Masonic Roundtable and throw a few bucks in. That'll keep the show running for many years to come. So thank you. Okay, so tonight's episode, a little bit of backstory here. This is a lot of fun because Chad and I, I don't know if we've met in person, virtually. We're trying to figure that out as we were getting ready for the show. I mean, you've been around. I've been around.
Right.
But
did you go to Camp Masonry?
I did not.
Oh,
I know.
That was back in
That's where I met you for the first time.
We were trying to figure that out. Yeah. And
Jason
for whatever
doesn't
reason,
It's
remember
where
what
I
his name was.
allegedly met you for the second time.
is that true? Let's find that out right now.
I have done some research, Mr. Richards, and I owe you an absolute apology because the first time you met me was at Camp Masonry. The person I thought I met you the years previously, and I'd given you grief about that.
Didn't
Different
happen.
gentleman of the same name. So mea culpa.
Jason
mea
Van
culpa,
Dyke.
mea maxima culpa.
Was
I
it
don't
Jason
know.
Van Dyke?
No.
Okay.
Your
I
brother
don't
from
know. There's
another
another guy
mother.
named Jason Richards. Maybe it's somebody who's like stole your identity. You ever thought about this?
Yes. Yeah.
Are you
check
maybe it's
your credit
Brad.
card?
It's probably Brad.
Maybe it's
Fair.
Brad. So
Could have
I got
been.
re-engaged again.
It's something that Brad would do.
So Brother Chad and I got spun up again recently, when Robert, we're waiting for him to hop in here, threw out a little poke at method actors in Facebook, and all of a sudden, we're starting to drop some shade back at him, and so Brother Chad and I start like, wait a minute, I didn't know like you're an actor and this and that, and we started like hitting up, and we're like, this would be a great topic to talk about on TMR. So here we are, bringing acting into the Masonic experience. So I guess I'll start things off with basically notifying you that if you're not familiar with the Masonic degree system, we do have at least 3 degrees in your traditional Blue Lodge, that kind of the way you enter into Freemasonry. And at some parts of that experience, there is a drama that unfolds, which does require, at least basic acting abilities. And so we wanted to, maybe basic, I've seen some really basic degrees done as well, but
There's a lot of drama in Masonry, though.
yes, we're not talking about
Right, not necessarily
personalities.
in the degrees.
Not
per
talking
se.
about like the dinner before.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So many things I could say right now, but
Yes.
I'm not going to.
Drama. So much drama. But not that kind. No.
So much drama.
Take that high road there, Joe. Take that high road.
Yeah, but now I got gin and juice in my head.
Hey there, Robert. Good seeing you. We filled the void.
Robert!
Awesome. We were just waxing poetic about how you decided to hate on method actors, and that's how Chad and I got spun up and said we need to have a whole show dedicated of throwing shade at Robert. So I'll wait.
Prolific actors said method acting is bologna sausage.
Sure. Well, we'll get into that. What that really means.
I think they use some other terms for that.
Bologna sausage. Yes, this is a G-rated show, PG maybe. So let's talk about method acting. So where Chad and I kind of got engaged on that is that there is I wouldn't say a little secret society. There's an inner circle of actors that actually go through different types of training. And so we started comparing notes. So Chad, tell us a little bit about your acting experience outside of Freemasonry. Just where did you get involved in
I
acting?
thought you were going to ask me about the history of method acting, and I can talk about that too, because that's actually really interesting in terms of how that developed and where that came from. For me, I was a weird kid, and I had, come from a very small town in south central Wisconsin that, if you were a weird kid, there wasn't really a good place for you. And little Jack Stats, the football, the mistake of trying to recruit me for football and walking me right past the room where they were rehearsing the spring play. I looked in there and I thought, there's a lot of really nice looking girls in there and not a whole lot of guys. And when I went into that room, all those weird things about myself that I didn't really like about myself, or those weird skills that I had that didn't seem to fit anywhere else, sure fit in that room. And that kind of started it for me. One of the nice things about theater is that as long as you're nice and do your job, there's usually a place for you, which is why sometimes people who don't fit in other places end up in theater. And that started me doing Comedy Sports, which was an improv a comedy group during high school, doing community theater. I went to Marquette University and got an undergraduate degree in theater education. I did professional work in and around like Milwaukee, Madison, Chicago. Realized that I liked having a roof over my head much more than I really liked being on stage and recognizing what my skills are. That what I was prepared to do. I went into education and I ran a curricular theater program for years, international baccalaureates, like the advanced placement, but the international version. We taught IB theater for, it was a 4-year curriculum, multiple students, did many shows per year. And I kind of existed blissfully on the periphery of theater, and still do. Now that I live in Appalachian, Ohio, I still every once in a while will go and do I'll go for a weekend and do a movie, or I'll go over here and do a play, or I'll go over here and direct something. But a life in theater doesn't mean one that's on Broadway. A life in theater just means one where you are, actively engaging those particular skills,
Right.
In communicating and expressing yourself and learning to discover your world using theater as a lens.
Yeah, I mean that's a great way to kind of capture that, because it is it is very experiential, right? There's many avenues you can take that, and I think you cover that well. That there's lots of ways to fit in. You don't have to be center stage Broadway, right? There's many other places to do that, and so.
No, one of the most talented
Yeah.
actresses I've ever met. She works building Muppets.
Nice.
She hates being on stage, but man, that woman can build a Muppet like you wouldn't believe.
That's amazing.
And God bless her. So,
Right. My background is interesting too. So I had interest, but not really got involved in anything until my senior year of high school. Our high school always did a huge production in their senior class play, and so I actually ended up being one of the leads in the senior class play. Had a good time, all was fun, and then decided to stick around. And a lot of the same people, a lot of the same adults involved in getting the senior class play. Yes, Joe, what's your question there?
Question, Mr. Ruark. What
Yes.
was the senior class play?
Yeah, that was my next question.
Congrats. Senior class play was a production of Once Upon a Mattress. Once Upon a
That's
Mattress.
a great show.
It's very
The
funny.
Kitchen
yeah.
Wench is the best part
Yes.
of that show.
Yes, so I played Prince Dauntless, the Drab, and I was the prince that just kind of a doormat, and the princess who slept on the pea. She was very outspoken and had a good character conflict with my mother, the queen. So enough of that. Then I decided so
I have embraced my inner thespian as well.
nice.
I was in the Albemarle Children's Theater production of Bye Bye Birdie
I was going to ask.
when I was
Good.
13.
As
Nice.
I played Harvey Johnson's father in a couple other ensemble parts
Nice.
because I had to miss a couple of the performances due to having to go out of town with my parents. But if you've never seen Bye Bye Birdie and you're a Mason, there's a very interesting scene in the middle of that may
too.
or may not involve a bunch of fezzes.
Now, they never come out. I did that show when I was in high school. That was the first time I ever made any kind of connection. I don't think they mention them by name, do they?
They do not.
The
They
Fez people.
allude to
Interesting.
It's a bunch of men drunkenly fawning over a pretty woman wearing fezzes, and the rest is up to your
Sounds
imagination.
familiar.
Joe, RJ, do you have any experience?
I do. Yeah, I
am
did.
impressed.
Yeah, I did. My most prolific performance was I was Joseph, and I could remember my name.
Martinez.
I was Joseph in the Living Nativity in first grade.
Yes.
No speaking parts. Very stoic, and I did a really good. Cars would drive by and check me out. And
Thought you were like mule number 2.
absolutely. You're mule number 2.
He was the back half of mule number 2.
You're the number 2 out of mule number 2.
We're keeping this a G-rated show, right?
Robert.
Okay.
How about you?
Yes,
Any
because
acting
we had to ban
stuff?
someone in chat last week after they
Yes.
donated to us.
Oh, we did.
No.
Mhm. Yeah, so every day I play a character called Robert Johnson.
The masks we wear.
And I don't necessarily, like what I project out here. This is all my method acting right here. I'm giving it all to you. I don't know. What am I like in real life? Oh my God! I walk around in sweatpants, or oh my God, who wore it best?
You
I
don't
really have no
want to
acting
know.
experience. Zero acting
Technically, it would
experience,
be-
aside from
It wouldn't.
the different things I would tell my mom, and when I was getting in trouble. Oh, I would make up stories. That's the extent of my acting.
But wait, there's more. So I just want to elaborate too. That was the beginning of some acting experience that I had. I did some community theater as well. But as an elective in college, I actually had the distinct pleasure of taking an acting and directing workshop that was taught by none other than John Astin, like Gomez Addams from the 60s Addams family, also Sean Astin's adopted father. So that was really cool because we got to hear stories from the 60s and 70s and how wild they were and all that good stuff. And I learned so much about like real method acting, and it was amazing because very much like the hero's journey, he broke us down and like completely dismantled whatever preconceptions we had about acting to build us back up through a whole bunch of activities and experiment and that kind of stuff, where we really got to learn what method acting is. So Chad, what's method acting? Why don't you talk about that?
See, and this is like 2 days of lecture to my former students. So I'm going to try to condense this down to about 12 seconds.
Nice.
Though, give me 30. It comes down to the social perception of what good acting is. And prior to about 1860s, 1870s, the definition of a good actor is somebody who could be seen and somebody who could be heard, because that was the limitation of the technology at the time. And if you look at the theater of Shakespeare, if you look at the morality plays, they're very declamatory. Person, they're just like standing there. Nobody ever really builds anything for theater. Theater steals from pretty much everybody else. And so we have this guy, the Freud dude, right? Sigmund Freud starts looking at psychoanalysis. And so as that starts being utilized in and around Europe, Konstantin Stanislavski starts saying, well, maybe we can start applying this to the art of theater, right? Because we can start applying it to our characters. There's a reason why they're doing these things, right? Because Freud is looking at the justification. Why do you bite your nails? Why do you, chew cigars? Whatever. And so Stanislavski's like, well, there's got to be a reason for this. And so what he brings to theater is this idea of justification, is this idea of using your own memories,
right,
to analyze the emotions you felt, like when your dog died when you were 7, and to bring those to the surface and use as your performance as I don't know. I mean,
Henry VIII,
whatever.
Exactly. Right.
And so where he brings that idea of psychology, so then what you see is that the definition of a good actor is somebody who can portray emotion.
Right. We're not pretending per se.
Without pretending, it seems right.
Yeah.
The idea of the theater of realism and the technology and what happens in theater with the sets becomes much more about taking this slice of life and putting it on stage. Now, with everything in theater, what tends to happen is that it's a pendulum. Things kind of go, the idea is if a little bit of something is good, then a little bit more must be better. And it keeps going until it gets so absurd that it swings back the other way. And so then what we see in about the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s is we get these people who have all gone through the method. We the New York Actors Studio, all those like bad stereotypes about what's my motivation
Yeah, right.
as an actor? Like, which gets in the way of the process, gets in the way of, they're sort of about the motivation that they're not worried about acting.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of hyper-realism on stage, they're recognizing, no, there's actually more to theater.
Mm-hmm.
Theater needs to get back to the idea of from which was ritual. So it needs to be more prime, needs to engage more of those, needs to be much more of a sensual activity. Likewise, what we see is that this desire to, we get so much real life out there that in the theater it should be hyper realistic and almost dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And so in actor preparation, we get a lot more of what kind of you were doing on Jerzy Grotowski, this idea of really almost physically beating the bejesus out of your actors, getting guys to like Bertolt Brecht and Antonin Artaud, where it's just absurd,
right,
to the point of mm-hmm. just crazy stuff. And there's a guy now named Augusto Boal who probably has that's a whole other show. He's really kind of gone back to marrying what ritual does and what theater can do and use them both for social change. And his ideas, especially in terms of how he prepares his actors, is really interesting and has a lot of implications, I think, for what we do. But what most Americans will do is what you did, and I ended up doing part of, is this idea of Konstantin Stanislavski's method acting, which is, we're going to do this textual analysis, and we're going to identify what the motivations are of the character. Why are they saying what they're saying? Why are they doing what they're doing? Everything must be justified. Everything must be,
beyond memorization, right?
Beyond
much deeper
memorization.
Behind that, right? Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and then there must be a sense memory behind it, right? Everything you say, has attached to it. And so while you're on stage, you don't have to worry about the words. Memorizing the words is where you start. Then what you're doing in your head, the work that you're doing while you're on stage, is you are going through your process of playing the intentions and the memories and, going through that psychological work in front of the audience to do what you're doing.
So just to elaborate on that, right, because you talk about Stanislavski, but these right after him, he started an acting school, right? And so it became almost like these fraternal organizations that have, like, they trace their lineage, right? They we're the official path because we trace this lineage. We can trace, right? Uta Hagen, there's some, right? There's Sanford Meisner, right?
Offshoots, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sanford Meisner is interesting for how he. Anyway, sorry.
No, because he was the improv guy. He was all about bringing improv in to that experience.
Well, Stella Adler was definitely more about how we classically look at improv. Meisner was very much about staying in the moment and staying present. His big critique about Stanislavski was you get too much in your own head.
Yes,
which is a very valid critique. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, and I came through the Meisner chain because Meisner then trained Uta Hagen, who trained John Astin, who trained me. So I think that's kind of cool to trace that little lineage there.
It is, and people are very much into their lineage. People are very much into particular schools, especially when schools of acting and came to America. Right. And now most actors will tell you that the role you have kind of determines your process, and so you end up being conversant in Stanislavski's. There's certain parts you just have to live. Like if you're doing the play Assassins and you're playing Sam Bick, like that's just a part you just have to live. There can be no artifice behind it. You just have to, And then there's some parts that that you're playing the third elf from the left in a Christmas pageant. You don't really have to do that big of a deep dive in playing the third elf.
So then why do method actors get such a bad rap, right? Why does Robert Johnson like to poo all over method actors?
Zing! Zing.
He's not wrong. I got to go with that off the bat. He's not wrong.
Right.
Because anything taken to an extreme is just obnoxious
Anything.
at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And the big dig about the method actors is that they are so into their process, they're so into themselves that they're allowed to be selfish, and they're allowed to do some fairly ridiculous and awful things, and they justify it by being in character. They justify it being this is just my process and I can't break character. Daniel Day-Lewis demanding to be carried on set during My Left Foot. Jim Carrey demanding to be addressed only as
his character.
I can't remember his name.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Leto, honestly, is one who drives
Andy
me
Kaufman.
the most nuts right now. Andy Kaufman, thank you. I'm thinking like Leica, Leica's his character from Taxi. But Jared Leto with Suicide Squad and even Morbius to an extent. I mean, people can do some amazing things. Even like De Niro with Raging Bull and Al Pacino. But there's a really famous story that probably illustrates this more than anything else. Dustin Hoffman had come through that New York system of acting, was really like wanting to live his role and make sure he was not inauthentic in any way, shape, or form. And so there's a movie called Marathon Man, which is honestly ridiculously disturbing if you ever watch it. Is it secret? Is it safe? It just will haunt your dreams the rest of your life, those words. Laurence Olivier plays a Nazi dentist, and Dustin Hoffman is playing this guy who's on the run from him. And his character's supposed to have been on the run all night. And so Dustin Hoffman spent the night like sleeping in dumpsters. He was awake for like 36 hours straight and showed up to set like smelling like garbage, looking like garbage, just looking bedraggled because he'd really lived that role. And so Laurence Olivier looks at him and says, "Oh, my dear boy, why don't you try acting?"
Ha! He took it to the extreme, right?
Yeah. And it can happen. And we see it in ritual all the time. We see it where, if we think about it, it would mean to be a good ritualist. What does it mean to be a performer of your ritual? In some places it is being seen and being heard. In some places, we think of conveying the emotion or conveying the message. And so how we prepare our officers or whoever is, conferring our degrees, that there are a lot of discussions we have to have. There's a lot of planning we need to do to be able to craft the experience that we want for our lodge, for our brethren, for the guys on the sidelines. And, a lot of those things can come from theater, from actor preparation and how we prepare a show. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's the tie-in there, right? That's why we've led with this whole, thespian background. But then, okay, so what? What does it have to do with Freemasonry? We talk about the degree system, but it's also the performative art of just knowing your lines, knowing your ritual, having command presence, stage presence, whatever you want to call it, right? It all ties into the Masonic experience. And we all know examples of where it's done well and done bad. Jason?
Well, it's a conveyance of the mysteries of the order to another person. And you can, when you think about the words, it's, the words are one part of that conveyance. And I think in a lot of lodges today, that's the part of the conveyance that is overemphasized to the point where, to the detriment of the other parts of that conveyance, which is really where the thespianism comes in. And so you can say a lot of pretty words, but if the candidate doesn't feel it, then they're lost on most of that experience.
Go ahead, Robert, because I got like 8 things I want to say here, and
Yeah, so one of the things that's really kind of bothersome, and I apologize, my connection's probably a little laggy, so I just wanted to say that with regard to the ritual as a performance, we don't see it often. And I think there is likely an explanation that goes back to the stand and deliver method. That's something that kind of happened after the conservator movement, when ritual was trying to be manipulated, if you will. And so I think they said, no, you can't do any of this stuff. And for whatever reason, nobody decided that it would be a good idea to continue to even wave your arms while you were acting out a lecture or something along those lines. And I think it makes for piss poor ritual, to be honest with you. I see no benefit in the stand and deliver approach when you're just a board mouthing words. And when Grand Lodges start, tossing around the idea of how to do a lecture and throwing things on video, maybe in order to train people, the idea here that is kind of lost on me and maybe others is like,
Yeah.
I don't understand how you can sit here and like train somebody to just and then it's all over. There has to be an
Well,
and that's
element,
not
as Jason was
that's
saying,
not in
this
keeping
idea
with
to convey it.
how it was done. I can't speak for any other jurisdiction, and I shouldn't. But Great Knowledge of Ohio was established in
I will.
1808. We had our proficiencies. We required proficiency in like 1842. We didn't have a standardized ritual until about 1891, and brethren couldn't actually buy a personal copy of their ritual until 2005. So memorization was about, just getting that stuff into your head.
Right.
And when was this written? Pre-Stanislavski, when it was a good actor is somebody who can just stand there and deliver the lines. In Ohio, we are lucky in that Grand Lodge has pretty much said that where the ritual is silent, the brethren can interpret, because they understand that that's what lodges have had to do since time immemorial. And right, you and I have friends who are in jurisdictions where they say where the ritual is silent, the brethren have to be as well. And that's, to me, that's a shame.
Joe?
Yeah, let me hit that from another angle, and I'm glad we started to dovetail this into the performance of ritual. I think that for me, acting and delivering ritual are kind of separate, right? Because one is telling a story, and back to Jason's point, the other is at least it's designed to walk a person through a certain journey, right? And it's supposed to be interactive. It's supposed to be memorable, and I guess the best word is emotive, right? Like you see when we're talking about that stand and deliver thing, it's you got someone up in the east. It sounds like a drone, and they just rattle out a whole bunch of words that they've memorized over time, right? And I'm not going to poo-poo memorization because I live in a mouth to ear state, right? Like we don't have ritual books in Virginia. We memorize everything mouth to ear, but that doesn't automatically say that it has to be emotionless, right? Or it has to be conveyed in a very drone-like manner, right? To that point. So I think it's just, there's nothing in Freemasonry that teaches people how to deliver the ritual, right? That ends up becoming, unfortunately, a personal preference more so than anything else, right? And the last point I'll say about that is, before I shut up and let Chad talk, is it's something that, to your point, you have to figure out. As that tight knit group of lodge members, right? Because I've walked into lodges where the ritual is absolutely god awful, right? It's people just droning on, and I feel so bad for the candidate after I've walked out. And then you go into other lodges where you're sitting on the sidelines and you're like, holy crap, I was moved by this, and I felt something when the person was delivering a lecture or walking a candidate through something. It's absolutely stirring. So, but I don't think there's anything in the craft that teaches us for this.
No, and this is sort of my personal crusade, and I think Robert has heard me say this on far too many occasions. I think we ask a lot of the wrong questions in Freemasonry, and I think we concentrate on a lot of the wrong things. And I think that to me, Freemasonry is all about meaningful connections. That's our product. That's what we do. And if we start looking at Freemasonry through the lens of meaningful connections, we may not necessarily get all the answers, but we at least have different tactics and different ways of approach. And when it comes to our ritual, I think, because especially when people find out that I have a theater background, they want me to come in and say, help me make my ritual more theatrical. And they're thinking smoke machines and saxophones and tuxedos. And, if you could somehow find a way to use this, I don't know, this fire pit that, Brother Alasov brought, that'd be outstanding. But if you focus on the meaningful connections? When I give the EA lecture at one of my lodges, it's with this 1866 book of Shearer prints, and I put me next to the guy I'm talking to directly across, and I talk to him, not at him. We're not shoulder to shoulder staring at
Big difference.
a DVD. I'm looking right at him, and I'm talking to him, and yes, part of what I have to do is for the guys on the sideline because of what ritual does and who it's for. But at that moment, my intention is forging this meaningful connection with this guy right in front of me. Listen, you just went through this whole thing here. Now, we tell you what it means to be a guy here at our table. These are the rules of being here at Christmas dinner. These are the rules of being here, at our celebration, to commune with us. This is what we hold sacred. This is what we do. This is who we are. And this is what we are going to expect of you. And I'm going to be there with you every step of the way. I don't need tuxedos and saxophones and a smoke machine and Brother Alasov's fire pit. What I need is I need to talk to that man and focus on the connections there. Does that make sense?
Beautiful. I agree.
It does. Well, let me actually bring up a counterpoint, and it's not for any other reason than just to argue with Chad. So, because I love
Bring
it.
Up.
So let's talk about the stage aspect of it, right? Let's go back to all lodges that we've sat in, right? I've sat in some beautifully ornate lodges, right? Beautiful carvings, paintings by Ryan Flynn, all that good stuff. They're just super deep and amazing. And then you've seen your wood paneled lodges, right? That that have the ambiance of your grandma's house, and everything in between. I would have to say,
home blue carpet.
Yes, and the plastic on the couches, it's nice. But my point in saying this is, I do think that when you're, no pun intended, setting the stage for ritual, I think your environment is important, right? Going back to your point, where you're having an individual, where you're having that meaningful connection with a candidate. I love how you put that. I think the overall environment plays a part as well, right? Because I've sat in degrees and I've even delivered lectures where you got guys farting around on their phone and, or people are jaw jacking in the background and, you just want to take something and throw it at them, but you're still in your moment doing your ritual and trying to make it as memorable as possible. And I think the environment itself also plays a part in that, both the people and, where you have things, how your candles are lit and how the room is,
right.
Is set up, and if we're, you've heard us say this a lot where, some of us treat the lodge room like, just a place to go and complain and get away from your wife and kids for a couple hours, or is it truly
a sacred, exceptional space?
Exactly, a sacred space, right? Where, you're basically welcoming deity to come in. I mean, does he or she really want to come in when you're farting around on your phone and chewing gum,
But here's to your point, and this is where I think we need to reframe the question for the guys on the sideline. Because right now, I can't speak for every lodge, but I know in many of the lodges that I'm in, right, we don't have guys on the sideline. Why would they come to a degree that they're not a part of conferring? So we need to reframe that question. Everybody, sorry, this is, I'm gonna beat this metaphor to death about our ritual being Christmas dinner, right? We come together at Christmas and we do these things at these times because it is to denote this as sacred, right? We have to eat Aunt Barb's cheesecake and we got to eat Cousin Will's, green beans. And there are rules and there's a structure to Christmas dinner. We lost Joe. That's fine. But
you said green beans, dude.
I know. Our ritual, yes, is for the candidate in a prescriptive manner, right? these are the rules. It's also for the guys on the sidelines. It is an opportunity for them to reconnect with each other, because I want to hear the story about the night that you were raised, and I want to hear the story about, like, I want to talk about Brother Alisov and where he stole that fire pit from, and he dumped it off at Lodge, and now we're going to put it in our ritual. Like, I want to hear that story.
John
It's
Ruart
also an
joked me.
opportunity. It's also an opportunity for the brethren on the sideline, right? We're telling this guy, he's kneeling at an altar. We're telling you, you are joining a community that transcends time, distance, and death. Oh, and by the way, there's one guy on the sideline who's reading his ritual and mouthing along with the lecture. The sideline should be filled with the brethren of the lodge. They have an obligation and a duty. They have a role in the conferring of the degrees, because they're the community this guy is joining. It's an opportunity for them to reconnect, to strengthen those meaningful connections with each other, with the lodge, with their experience when they went through the degrees. If we can get brethren to start thinking about our degrees like that, maybe they'll actually show up, just to sit on the sidelines and watch somebody they don't know go through the degree, because it's not about them, but it is about them.
You're so spot on with that. I mean, I'm giving you a hug virtually right now. But I think that, and man, I'm just Debbie Downer today with all the counterpoints, right? And I so normally and I'm like that, right? Because I'm like, yay, Masonry. But I just got that counterpoint vibe today with you, Chad, and I don't know why. It be? And, no, it's not. I love you. I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like, all these guys on the sidelines, and I'm sorry to say it, and if you think differently, I don't care, right? But I think for a lot of the guys that don't come anymore, I don't think they got that experience when they went through. Agreed. You know what I mean? And as a result, the lodge today and the members today absolutely suffer for it, right? Because there is no interpersonal connections with the ritual and with someone going through. And you kind of said a word that just exploded in my brain, right? You like, I have this guy that I don't know, and he's a stranger, and he's going through the degrees. And I think that's the wrong mindset that these people have, not you and I, because when we bring in someone that, or at least the ideal should be, when you bring in someone that's to as a candidate for the degrees, they're becoming a member of your family, right? And that's it's not a vapid, oh, he's my brother kind of thing. Like, you're genuinely becoming a part of this person's family and vice versa. And
right, I think this is cousin Marcy bringing her boyfriend to Christmas, right? Like,
it's a big deal.
Her fiance to Christmas. This is a big deal, right?
Exactly right. And it should be a big deal. And I think where we suffer for that is it wasn't a big deal for so long. Especially when we were a degree factory, and when we were in our peaks of membership and stuff, when you had 95 members getting raised in a day, in a single lodge, and I think we're a victim of our own success, quote unquote, right? So
right.
And I don't know if you could call it success when there are leaders of organizations who have called the degrees, the things that are supposed to be like these prolific things that change us forever, have called them like the thing we have to suffer through in order to get to the good part of Masonry.
Oof. Yeah, and the thing is,
that came from a top office of the nation.
And which means, and I have a theory about everything, Robert. You know this. I mean, when we were doing 1,000 guys a year, do we really have time to do proficiencies? Do we really have time to actually teach these guys? Mm-hmm. No. And guys can't pass on what they didn't receive. And what became the mark of a good Mason was somebody who could memorize stuff, because he didn't need a written ritual, or he knew it and could pass it on. And so the focus became on memorization and not on connections or experience. And I think if we can reframe the discussion, that's why when I do go visit a lodge, if I see that grumpy past master, I start asking him about the night that he was raised or the night that he was initiated, because he wants to talk about it. And I want to hear those stories. And if we stop thinking about our degrees and our proficiencies as obstacles and start looking at them as opportunities to forge meaningful connections, again, I think I don't know if we're going to solve all of our problems, but we're at least going to be able to try something different. And we're at least going to be looking at it in a different way to better our lodges.
Yeah, so let's bring it practical then, because
Okay.
in the last time here like let's talk about how do we improve the Masonic experience by bringing good acting and directing kind of skill sets into the experience.
Here's
And I wanted to lead off with like the let's see, Right Worshipful Brother Chris Busby, who's the Grand Lecturer in the state has escaped me right now.
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, that's it. Yes, you got a copy of that right there. Has a great Grand
This is
Lecturer's
amazing,
Guide
by the way.
for ritual
This is
excellence.
awesome.
Yeah, and it's
And
something that every Grand Lodge should have.
Well, if he'll let me, Ohio will have it shortly. Here's the thing, and here's where he is absolutely right on,
Mm-hmm.
that we need to stop thinking about our ritual as, me going and saying, "My dear sweet Lord, learn that senior warden's part," or I'm going to, right? And I'm going to sit there with my ritual, and if you're wrong, I'm going to call you out because you said harassed as opposed to harassed, and yada yada yada. We need to start looking at it like a director would and creating a unified experience that reflects your ritual is your opportunity to create an experience that reflects and communicates the values of the lodge. And so whether that is tuxedos and saxophones, or whether that is just, candles and a chamber of reflection, you as officers, if you're the worshipful, if you're the senior warden and you're going to be in the East next year, take your officers, go out to dinner, have a glass of something, and ask them, what was the moment for you? What was your aha moment as a Mason? What was the moment that meant the most to you in your EA degree? And guys will bring all kinds of things up. Peter Brook, in a book that I think every ritualist should read, which is called The Empty Space, he talks about that as a director, your job is to analyze your emotional reaction to a play and then work to create it for others. So fine, as an officer team who's conferring that ritual, what are those important moments that are meaningful to you? What are those things we want to make sure that we pass on to our next guy and make sure the guys on our sidelines connect with? We want to make sure that we use old Pappy Johnson's sword, we want to make sure that we do that because it's old Pappy Johnson's sword and we can talk about old Pappy Johnson. Or we want to make sure that the moment that I love, and I'd like to say it as often as I can because I think it's just an absolutely amazing, simple moment. One of my lodges I belong to, when they first put the apron on a guy, they snap the strings tight. And you can hear it and the guy feels it and they tie a super tight knot. And it all came about because we were sitting around as officers and talking about it. And the guy said, when I was an EA, when they first put that around my waist, it was his dad, snapped that thing tight, tied a knot. He said that for the first time I felt bound. For the first time I felt that weight of that around my waist. And I understood, I'm joining something that I'm going to be carrying with me the rest of my life. And him saying that made the rest of the lodge go, oh, that's good. Okay, when you're going to do that, right? So having that conversation as a lodge, understanding what are those important moments, creating a unified, for lack of a better word, performance. Okay, once you got that, now let's just do the homework and just get the thing memorized.
Yeah,
and decide, because nothing good can happen until the script is out of your hand. And at some point, you guys as a lodge have to decide that, this is a bigger conversation. If the guy messes up a word, are you going to call him out during the degree? If the guy messes up, are you going to jump on him? Or are you just going to let it go? Because how many rituals have you been to where the guy is so flustered looking for a word because he knows he has the wrong one and knows that someone's going to jump his booty, when he's done, that he can't even think about doing anything about connections or creating an experience because he's so worried about, I'm going to mess up a word. let the guy off the hook. Because if you can't fail in a room full of your brothers, who in the world can you fail in front of? And that was a Chad Lasik, I think, who said that to me, because he's awesome. Is that did I get his name right, RJ? Or not? Chad's awesome. All praise to Chad's. Anyway, so create that experience. Let your brethren work together to create an experience that reflects the values of your lodge. And if you need saxophones and tuxedos, great. If you want to go simple, but craft that experience and then commit to it. So that's where it starts.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're really talking about, again, memorization of the ritual is, again, the first thing you should do, not the last thing you should do, right? It's the beginning of, now, how am I going to deliver it? And we're not talking going, all Hamlet on it, right? We're just saying that
to be or not to be. Like, I don't know.
From
if that works
born,
for your lodge, God bless you.
Right. But it should be, do you have the right tone? Do you have the right volume? Do you have the right command presence? Can you walk around a bit while you're giving the lecture, so it's more conversational? I like how you said talking to someone rather than at someone, right? These are all practical things that you can do that pretty much every jurisdiction allows. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I belong to Grand Lodge of Wisconsin, and I belong to the Grand Lodge of Ohio. Right, Grand Lodge of Wisconsin in their ritual is ridiculously specific about where you hold your staves, what angle, how you turn, where you turn, when you turn, whole 9 yards. Ohio's not. And there's, again, pluses and minuses to that. And, Jason Laramie, if he's listening, I'm sure he'll call me and he'll give me grief about, what I'm about to say here. The thing is, you can get so worried about the technical aspects and so worried about, oh my God, am I holding the staff the right way? And, how many different past masters yelling at you because it's at a 47-degree angle as opposed to a 45-degree angle, that you get taken out of the world you're trying to create. And so as a brethren, you have to kind of commit yourself to, okay, what's really important? What do we want to focus on? What do we want to really,
Yeah, and that reminds me of the... That reminds me of the excuse / joke of, well, this is the best ritual this candidate has ever heard. And often it's a sellout answer of, well, we can be as mediocre or less as possible because he won't know any different. And yet, let's look at it glass half full, to your point. Like, don't worry about the small mistakes, but focus on the experience, the context of the delivery, and provide that as the goal.
Well, and here's where I think also we have such a problem as in ritual. And this is, I'm going to use an illustrative story. I went to a lodge, not going to say which one, where they hadn't fielded a full fellowcraft team during the Master Mason for like 35, 40 years. But they were decided to do that per Grand Lodge edict that year. And there's a part where they search the temple, right? And they say, what? No designs upon the trestle board. And when they did that, their full fellowcraft team came up and took boomerang sized squares and they threw them at the trestle board, and they bounced them off the trestle board. What? Where? No design on the trestle board. I was sitting near the trestle board and I felt like what is this?
What in the world?
And so afterwards, I'm talking to the master and they said, oh yeah, that's just been our lodge tradition for like 70, 80 years. I said, why? What's the point of this? Well, that's our lodge tradition. That's what we do. And here's where Stanislavski is helpful. Justify.
It's the way we've always done it.
Right. Why? And you and I both know, Jason, that half the things that people say, that's the way we've always done it, it's because somebody had an idea 30 years ago and nobody questioned it.
Yep.
Why are they throwing boomerangs at the secretary and bouncing off the trestle board? I don't know. Someone did it 40 years ago and they thought it was funny. Or, I don't know, the secretary was asleep, and Right Worshipful Brother, McCarty had to wake him up during the degree. That and like so, as a lodge, we had that discussion. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? What are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to do with that? So,
Yeah, so I mean that's an excellent break-off point too. Again, we could talk for many, many hours about this topic, about how to the various.
you mean the 14 pages of notes I sent you that we didn't get to?
I know, right? It's an hour
I
show,
should never
man.
go on podcasts. I should because I write notes and then we never get to them.
I love it, but it was experiential. It really was. It was because it was more improv than it was notes. So thank you for that, Brother Chad.
It's all about preparation.
Yeah.
If you get the baseline down, then you can improvise off of that.
Yeah, it's almost like you actually practice what you preach. So
I never do that.
Never do that. Okay, so let's go over to final question. We'll start with Jason, and that is your favorite aspect of the acting experience of the ritual, the anything in Masonry.
My favorite thing is that, with certain few exceptions, everything that is done in the initiatic ritual is done to convey a specific thing. And so there are very few instances in the Masonic ritual where an action is taken or a set of words is spoken that isn't trying to convey through allegory a divine truth or part of the peculiar system of morality that is Freemasonry. And so the fact that everything has a purpose it keeps me coming back to the ritual again and again and again.
And again. Very nice. Thank you, Jason. Let's head over to Joe. What's your favorite part of the Masonic Thespian experience?
Besides the green beans and the cheesecake that Chad alluded to, I would have to say that no, I think that I do think that there's a difference between acting and delivering ritual, and Chad touched on a lot of the points of why they're different. But to that point, I think the thing that I care about the most when it comes to ritual is that it has to be delivered with emotion, right? And if you've been through that initiatic experience, not sitting on the sidelines, not being in a room of 1,000 people, that's not really the initiatic experience. That's becoming a member of something. If you've lived through that, you can pull from those emotions and those thoughts that you were thinking that day, and put that into a performance. There really is no better word for that, but delivering something to a candidate in a really powerful way, I think is one of the greatest gifts that we can give people, and I wish we did more of it. So
Nice.
I'm done.
All right, Robert, thoughts?
I liked the commentary in this episode. It gave me a much clearer definition and understanding of what method acting is, and really the various ways in which we all attempt to give meaning to the ritual work. I think that something that's really interesting is we mentioned this idea that our candidate comes in, and one of the things that happened to me when I came into Masonry was before giving me the interrogatories, and for those non-Masons, listening, a set of questions that happened before the degree from the secretary to ensure that what I'm about to do is something that I personally want to do, and that nobody's paying me to, join a lodge or anything. And so during this, he says, now he breaks away from the interrogatories and he says to me, Robert, now this evening you're going to take part in a ritual, and that ritual is like a play. and you're the star of the play, but you don't know any of your lines. So you're going to have somebody with you the whole time, and they're going to deliver those lines for you. You know, and he kind of explained it this way. And I said, okay, great. And I think when I was told that, to understand it like a play, because I don't know that I would have made the difference like back then, right? I wouldn't have thought ritual, play, you know, all these things. I'm just thinking like, oh, whatever, it's a ritual. I didn't know. And I think that just really helped. And I think that doing that helped me also understand as a candidate that this is not going to be perfect, but that these guys are going to attempt to be, you know, just prolific in their delivery as to affect me on the deepest level possible. And I think my Mother Lodge did that very well. I think God all the time that I had such a great lodge that did my degree work. That was their whole thing. They love degree work. So they really put all their into it. So I commend all the method actors out there in Masonic lodges. I commend every single person out there that does a degree and adds some flavor to it. And that doesn't just stand there and deliver in their goofball monotone voice, right? We all know what that's like. So everybody out there that is an advocate for this, thank you so much. Keep on doing it. Make it normal. Make it weird for your candidate who's gone through a degree at your lodge. Make it weird so that when they go to their like sister lodge in the district and they come back to your lodge and they go, yo, I watched a third degree over at Joe Bob Lodge 5-6, and are they clandestine? You know,
Right.
like be that good.
Be that good. Short and sweet. All right, Brother Chad, what are your final thoughts on the Masonic experience?
And I got to be short and sweet. Not going to happen because I got a couple of them.
Please.
But to Robert's point, I mean, my big sort of crusade in my brain right now is thinking about this idea of personalizing Masonry. You know, and that's what Robert's talking about. I mean, yeah, make your degree weird because there's no reason in the world that, you know, Joe Bob Lodge's EA should be exactly the same as Cheeseball Lodge's EA. It's okay if they're different because lodges provide different experiences. We're not McDonald's. Peter Brook, this is one of the reasons why I like his that book, The Empty Space. And this also goes to what Joe was talking about. Theater and ritual are different. They have to be. I mean, they're sisters, but they came from different places. But he has this whole section of what he calls the holy theater. And he really is talking about our ritual. And he says that ritual is this opportunity for the people conveying it to create the circumstances where something holy can happen. He calls it the happening. That where basically like when the time is right, when the stars align, when everything, you know, is clicking on all cylinders, we have the opportunity to pierce the veil and peel it back and glimpse the infinite. And you may not get there every single time, but every time you perform, you have that opportunity. And so as you are doing your ritual, the reason that we kind of perfect it and the reason that we do it should be that there's going to be that one time out of 100 where we glimpse the infinite. But I got to tell you, that glimpse is one of those things that inspires you to keep on going. Is that glimpse of the infinite makes you want to demand more of yourself and those around you because you want to put yourself in a position to glimpse more of the infinite next time. There's nothing better than being good in a good show and to know that your contribution helped make it good. And when it comes to our ritual, that should be our goal, is to make it as best as we can, as personal as we can, so that we can glimpse the infinite and help our fellow brethren and our new candidate glimpse it as well.
I love that. And so thank you very much, Brother Chad, for coming on and sharing that lens with which to look through the Masonic experience. I mean, that's beautiful the way you put that at the end. And I'll add to that and just say that, yeah, you definitely get an adrenaline rush, a high of being in a great performance, right? If you've ever done theater, or if you've just done a really good degree, we all know what that's like. We've had that experience where it's like, wow, man, everything was firing on all cylinders. We're all in the zone. The words came out great. It was meaningful. And you alluded to something, and I want to double down on it too, which is that even if you're an excellent ritualist and you've given that lecture 1,000 times before, give it as if it's the first time. Every time, right? Be present in that moment. Deliver it as if you are talking directly to that one candidate, and do it as if it's the very first time you're doing it. Make sure you're prepared, make sure your heart's in the right place, and everything else will follow, right? Preparation is key, right? As if we were just talking about. Don't come in without knowing your lines, don't come in without knowing the intent. Hey, I'll even say, know what the words mean, right? Don't use these long, archaic, Old English terms that you don't understand what they mean. Know what they mean, so then you can internalize those and bring those forward, bring that lesson forward. Because really just being present and delivering a literally, hopefully once in a lifetime experience to a brother is really the most important thing that matters. Brother Chad, again, we could go for hours on this, but maybe we'll do a part 2. It'd be great to bring you back on and nerd out some more. So,
it's always an honor to be with you guys. So I always learn a lot. So thank you very much.
Yeah, likewise. All right. Well, hey, I want to thank you all very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.